Welcome back to another episode of Joyful Journeys. I'm Sammy, and today I'm joined by my Girls on the Run co-coach, Ali Newman. Ali and I are currently in our fifth season of coaching together, and when I heard that today's topic was about resolving conflict, I immediately thought of Ali. Since we've been coaching together for a while now, I have been witness to a handful of times where Ali has resolved conflicts with ease, and I just jumped at the opportunity to be able to talk to her about this. So, to get us started, Ali, why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself?
Yeah, sure. And thanks for having me on, Sammy. This is so fun to talk to you outside of practice more. So my name is Ali Newman. I live in the DC area and have for the past decade. So love being here. And outside of Girls on the Run, I am a marketer. I do product marketing at Deloitte. And then I also have a husband, a 3-year-old son, and a dog who can be kind of chatty. So you might hear him throughout this.
Love it. We love when the pets get involved. Well, besides the times that I've seen you resolve conflicts at our Girls on the Run practices, how prevalent is conflict resolution in your everyday life?
Well, I will just say it's so funny that you think of it as conflict resolution. I think it is. I just think of it differently. I think when conflicts arise, I don't necessarily think of it as like conflict as much as I think just a natural part of us being humans, right? If people don't always agree, we don't always have the full context of what's going on. You know what I mean? But so I mentioned I have a son, he is 3. So there's a lot of conflict resolution with toddlerhood, I would say, of just communicating and making sure everyone's calm throughout life's moments that are hard. And then the other thing that as I was reflecting on this topic is just that so I mentioned I'm a marketer. In marketing, it's obviously part science and data, but part subjective too. And so there's a lot that I do around alignment, right? And trying to really, one, understand the audience who I'm trying to reach to make sure that I can give them relevant content and kind of meet their needs through these solutions. So it's a lot of like putting myself in other people's shoes. And then on the approval side, right, there's a whole, especially at like a large institution like Deloitte, right, where there's a lot of stakeholders involved at every step of the way. And so managing that and again, putting myself in their shoes of what do they care about? How can I make sure that this piece of content or whatever campaign we're working on, right, delivers in the market, but also that I'm keeping them kind of abreast along the way to make sure that there aren't conflict moments, right? Like I think a lot of times conflict comes when we don't have all of the answers, right? Or there's kind of differing perspectives on what's going on. And so I'm definitely a big fan of kind of over communicating and putting myself in other people's shoes to make sure that not that we're preventing conflict, because again, I think conflict's a part of life, but I think it's easier for me at least to navigate those like tricky moments, right? If I understand where the other person's coming from or try to. So that's typically what I try and do.
I love that. And I love that you say that you don't really see it as conflict resolution, you just see it as a part of everyday life, which from I think my point of view, I see it as like, oh, like there was this issue and Ali handled it just so well. And so my mind just kind of like connects it to conflict resolution. But thinking about the times where I may have been that person trying to sort out those issues and trying to like just kind of keep the peace, make sure everyone's on the same page. You're right. I don't think of it as conflict resolution. So it's interesting how, like, from depending on your point of view, it can change. But also,
Yeah.
as you were saying all of that, I was connecting it to all of the Girls on the Run lessons that we've done. And the two that really came to mind were communicating and empathy.
Mm-hmm.
And those
Mm-hmm.
are such big things with what you said because making sure that you have all the information, making sure the other party has all the information, that we're not making assumptions, but like those are all the things that we're teaching the kids. And that is so cool to see those connections.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think just staying curious too, which definitely aligns with some girls in the run lessons, right? Not just assuming, oh, there's an issue. This person's just being difficult to be difficult, right? But kind of leaning in and trying to, I think it goes a long way with the girls for us to know them and notice things and being like, hey, like, can I just talk to you for a second? I noticed that happened and like that seems a little out of character for you. So like let help me understand like what's going on here. Because like all of us, right, these girls have whole lives outside of practice. And there are sisters on the team, which come with dynamics. There are, people who are new to the school or new to the team. So there's just a lot going on under the surface. Um, and so I think just staying curious and asking some questions out of a place of curiosity versus judgment is kind of the tactic that I typically try and take.
I love that. And I love that now that we have been around them for a couple seasons and we have a decent amount of returning kiddos on our team. And like you said, it's really cool to just be able to pick up on, oh, they're acting a little off today, or that's not their typical personality. Typically, they're
Mm.
stepping up right away to help us out with something. And today they're a little bit quieter or in the shadows a little bit. And so being able to take what we know about them and being able to approach them about that, I think one, it shows to them, it provides them a good example of, hey, this is a way that we can show empathy. We can make sure we can look out for each other. We can help
Mhm.
each other's stars shine bright when a cloud is covering them. All of those things that we're teaching them, and then being able to model that to them in a way that's not so strictly part of the lesson, so to speak. So it seems like
Yeah.
very authentic and genuine, and it kind of puts it in a real life situation for them where hopefully they think back about it later when they're put in a similar situation. They can say, oh, I can be like Coach Ali in this situation and I can go ask my friend what's wrong and hopefully help her out.
Mhm.
So I love that.
Yeah. And it's not always easy, right? We have a very large team. This season we have 37 girls. So although we do have a decent number of returning girls, there's also a lot of new girls. And I don't know anything about them yet, right? We're still, not that I don't know anything, right? But I'm still getting to know them.
Right.
So not saying it's always easy, but in the times when you do have that context, I think it helps to navigate that for sure.
Yeah, definitely. Why? So we kind of touched on this, but if you could just go into a little bit more detail about why you think that it is important for us to be teaching kids this at a young age. How do you think we're helping to set them up for success later in life?
Yeah, I think the social emotional skills that we're teaching them are so important. And with conflict resolution in particular, right? Like kids aren't always going to get what they want. Kids aren't going to always get what they want every hour of every day, right? And so both at practice and with my son, right? I just think it's so important to give them the skills to understand their own emotions, right? So that they're able to navigate this and to model that for them in a way that shows them a lot of respect, right? Because like even though they're young, right, they're their own people. And I just think it's really important to I was a Girl Scout growing up. So the golden rule of kind of treating others the way that you would like to be treated, I think really goes a long way. So I think, you know, helping to bring them along in the journey with us of we're not always going to agree, right? I think the community impact project at the end of the year is a great example. There's lots of ideas. Every idea can't get chosen. We do what we can to help them navigate that. But I would say like that's a point where there could be some conflict, right? That we're trying to help them navigate just because there's different opinions and different perspectives on what's the most important one. So, anyways, rambling answer aside, I think it's just conflict and knowing yourself are such an important part of life. And so being able to put yourself in the other person's shoes who you might not agree with is just really important so that you might not agree at the end of the day, even if you understand them, right? But for myself at least, I think it really helps to come at those moments from a place of empathy and trying to be understanding, right? So that you can have a more productive conversation and walk away being like, I still might not agree with that person, right? And I might, the conflict might not be over because we don't have agreement, but I understand where they're coming from. And I feel like we've gotten to a good place where like we both understand each other. And I think that that moment of that resolution is just really important for general happiness, right? And like us as people to feel maybe fulfilled is the wrong word, but I think just like whole, right? Like don't have that icky, like inside tummy ache that can happen if you just feel like you're at odds with someone.
Yeah, yeah. That was a good point that I wanted to bring up too, was that not all the time, but maybe a majority of the time, conflict can sometimes be uncomfortable. Whether it's a conflict that has arisen because you didn't agree with something, you just don't see eye to eye with someone, whatever it may be. I think a lot of times we associate conflict with being negative. And being able to teach these kids that even if it is negative, we can solve it calmly, peacefully in a friendly manner. It doesn't have to lead to yelling, screaming. We can talk it
Hmm.
out. We can find a resolution. And like you said with the Community Impact Project, although they all have such good ideas, we do have to compromise and we have to find a project that suits everybody. Where that means that you might not get exactly what you wanted, but everyone isn't getting exactly what they wanted. We're all finding that happy medium somewhere in the middle where we can all still have a piece in it, but we're still meeting the needs of others as well. So that's awesome. I love that you brought in the Community Impact Project. That is watching them come up with these ideas and just realizing how they see their community and how they see themselves
Hmm.
as someone who can help their community is so fascinating to me. I mean, their ideas, some of them are so unique. I mean, sometimes we have some repeat ideas every year. I think they get comfortable with, oh, well, we did this in the past. That means we can do it again. But I like pushing them to come up with something new and try something new and give back to their
Hmm.
community in a new way. So I love that.
Yeah.
Well, Ali, thank you so much for joining us on this episode of Joyful Journeys. Hopefully, we don't have to utilize too much conflict resolution going forward this season, but if we do, I know we're in good hands, and I know that you're going to set a fabulous model for our kids. Um, but luckily, I get to see you tomorrow. But for everyone else listening, tune in next week for another episode of Joyful Journeys. This episode of Joyful Journeys is brought to you by Girls on the Run of Northern Virginia.